introduce you to EventBank's webinar engagement solution. With this solution, you can make money from all your online events, provide engaging experience to all attendees, and showcase your brand the way you want. Let's have a look. Here, we can see the number of participants. Below, to the bottom left screen, you can give your sponsors and partners a premium exposure that will be visible throughout the webinar. Next to it, we have our today's agenda, available presentations and documents, and speakers in this webinar. As you can see, it's only me. On the right side, you can chat with other attendees and ask me or other speakers any questions. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. Hi, Paul. Yes, you can. You can create breathtaking event pages, send out event invite emails and reminders, and give feedback with surveys in a few easy steps, all without compromising on your branding. Hi, Sam. We provide the highest level of security and reliability. Your webinars are password protected, and all data you collect is safely stored in your EventBank CRM. Hi, Trisha. I'm glad you asked. Our solution was built to bridge the gap between online and offline events and make online events as engaging as possible. Attendees can create and share their own digital business cards, manage their contacts, book meetings, and effectively network with anyone. Hi, John. To get a demo, you can send us an email to sales@eventbank.com, or you can request a demo on our website. You can find the link in the video description. That's it for today's webinar. I hope you enjoyed. I'm Jeremy Smith. Thank you and goodbye.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Kenny, Senior Sales Director here at EventBank. It's awesome to have you with us today as we discuss navigating the new normal of the event industry. The event industry, as we know, has taken a serious beating from the COVID-19 pandemic. The world's concept of gathering has changed, though the crisis has been challenging. The experience has also provided unique opportunities and avenues for the event industry. Today, we'll hear from the industry experts that will share and educate on how the event industry can navigate forward and become a global force once again under our new normal. To kick off today's event, let's welcome Noor Hamad Hamid, who is the Regional Director, Asia Pacific of the International Congress and Convention Association, the ICCA. Welcome, Noor, over to you.
Thank you, Kenny, and a good day to everyone joining us in this webinar. Again, thank you to EventBank for organizing a series of webinars talking about how our industry players should act, should work together in this new norm, so to speak. If I may share my PowerPoint screen, just give me a second. The topic that we have for me to start with the presentation is on navigating the new normal of the event industry. I don't have to explain to you how hard we are being hit with this coronavirus or COVID-19, but we can see there's a lot of pockets of positiveness happening around the world, with countries understanding to how to live with this COVID-19, and they are reopening back their businesses, opening back their community. Representing ICA, we are an international association based in Amsterdam, and I'm representing the regional office for Kuala Lumpur. And I'm happy to share with all the audience today that today it marked a historic day for ICA, because we have just reached our 300 members for Asia Pacific, making Asia Pacific the largest region for the Global ICA Association. What we do at best is that we track all meetings organized by international association. We don't track meeting organized by sporting events or governmental events, specifically into this area of knowledge industry, the international association meetings. More than 250,000 meetings been tracked as early as 1873. And we look at specifically meetings that has a rotation pattern. That means it goes from one member country to another, or one destination to another. Therefore, our members have the opportunity to go out and bid for these conferences for their respective destination. So in the slide that you can see, the first two boxes are in blue. So that's what we are still tracking. But the challenge that we have is in the red boxes, whereby the confirmed meeting that we are tracking from now until 2034, there will be 6,000 meetings but the fate of some of these meetings still unknown, because we know that some of the meeting has been postponed, cancelled, or moved. And also the fate of the international associations. There are almost 12,000 associations around the world that we track that meet our specific criteria. We are not sure whether they will survive or not. This is the most challenging time. Never imagine in the world, in our life, that we will come to this situation. COVID-19 have impact on every level, including the international associations. Therefore, I would suppose that association that has a good reserve will definitely be able to survive longer, and associations who are smaller in terms of finance and cash flow, in terms of membership and services, would find it hard to continue to survive in this rough situation. If I can take all the audience one step back, in 2019, it was a fantastic year for the international association meetings. We recorded the highest number of meetings that we were able to track. That's about 13,254. If you are coming from other industries like exhibition, for example, maybe 13,000 is a small number because you are dealing with a larger event. But in terms of association, this is a huge number, because we're talking about those meetings that rotates from one destination to another and specifically organized by international association. So that was a big things happening. But when the COVID-19 happened, as I earlier mentioned, early on, we saw there are some cancellation. People are concerned about travelers coming from China, and people are not able to travel to China because China started with the pandemic. And therefore, we see a lot of cancellation in China and the region of North Asia. But by the time we come to March 2020, we saw about only 6% of the international association meeting are affected, especially those that's planning between the month of February, March, April, May, and June. So a lot of forecasts being made that hopefully by the third quarter, we will get back to the normal life, and we can continue doing what we do, the face-to-face meeting. But unfortunately, that is not the case. We are living in this virtual world as we are today having this webinar, and breaking the travel bubble is something that is not easy. I think it would take a longer time for that to happen. And a quick look at what being released by the United Nations World Tourism Organization, the UNWTO, the impact of COVID-19 to tourism. This is a research that they've done for the first quarter of the year, January to April. Already 180 million fewer international tourist arrival to the destination. And from the map on the slide suggests the hardest impact is the Asia Pacific destination. In 2019, we had an increase of 4% in terms of tourist arrival, 360 million tourists. But for January to April, the number has gone down by 51. But you can always imagine what is beyond May. It is worse than minus 51%. So if we look at a tourism arrival, and the business event are a component of the bigger, larger number of tourism arrival, definitely we are also impacted by the COVID-19. So the question that we have been thinking at the global level is, what are the immediate impact to the association community? So we saw events being cancelled, postponed, and unsure. We have spoken to a lot of our members around the world, in particular venue and professional congress organizers. This has created chaos. Early on, when conferences in the first quarter, second quarter of the year being postponed or cancelled, it was moved to the later part of the year. So venues and PCOs are juggling to find the right timing, the right space to host the event in the second part of the year. But now, as we are moving into August, September, still things are not improving, and people are now just moving their event from 2020 to 2021, hoping that 2021 things will go back to normal. But it will be a crowded place, crowded space for 2021 because of this postponement. And again, when I mentioned about the effect on international association, we are not sure whether a lot of associations are still able to have the capacity to organize the conference in next year, because this particular 2020 will hard hit us all in terms of the revenue. And as we can see also, just like today, almost everybody is going virtual. And now with some of the reopening, we are going hybrid. In fact, early on today, I was engaging with a hybrid training that we do with our members in Thailand. So we have about 100 academia in Bangkok coming in a hotel room with all these safety measures. And we have local speakers as well as international speakers. So that's what we are doing. And I think what is happening today is just similar to the ants. If you imagine the ants walking along, hundreds and thousands of them in one long line, and when they approach to a stone, they will find a way to go either around the stone or they will move on top of the stone. So human being, I think we have that nature of survival as well. I think virtual and hybrid is the way to go now. But I think if the travel are allowed and in future, I think people will still go do virtual, hybrid, and face-to-face. So this will be the immediate impact on the association community. And of course, the biggest challenge for association is the events that they normally organize on face-to-face and the membership and their bottom line. For ICA as an association, our membership goes from January to December every year. So we already saw that there are a lot of members out there who are hard hit with the current situation, and that will definitely take effect on our membership roster for 2021. We suspect there will be a significant drop in terms of membership between 20 to 35%. But again, this depends on how long more we have to survive with this situation. And indeed, associations are suffering, especially those without strong reserve. I've mentioned that earlier on also. And associations are offering new innovative benefits. Because we cannot meet face-to-face, how do we go on to provide the benefits to our members? And it's going to be a challenge because earlier part of the year, a lot of associations, and I would say most of the association has taken their face-to-face event into virtual event. And because you are suddenly hit with this COVID-19, we have to do webinars, we have to do Zoom, we have to do WebEx and all sort of platform that you have out there, including Eventbank. And once you have done that, the webinar go on free. The challenge now is how do you translate that or change that or convert that from a free webinar to a paid webinar? Imagine even for ICA ourselves, our annual congress will be in November in Kaohsiung this year. So we're going to be hybrid as what we have already announced. But the challenge now is that we have produced so many webinars for our members from February until now that it will have a huge challenge and impact on members trying to register for a virtual event, for a hybrid event. So I think this is going to be felt not just by ICA, but for any association out there or any organization, because you have given a free thing to the members, and now they would expect something similar when you do your annual congress. So this is going to be a challenge. And I think associations need to explore new business model. This is without doubt, because a lot of associations, including ICA, we have our 3-year plan as well as our long-term 5-year to 10-year plan. But the COVID-19 has just shook us all up very rudely. And I think we need to relook at every angle of how to keep ICA survive. Associations are now talking about survival. So this is something that is never been taught before, because we never thought that this is going to happen in our lifetime. To continue, I'm sure that those who are in the meeting space or the meeting industry, you are familiar with the Joint Meeting Industry Council. They have come up with the Global Manifesto to talk about the business event recovery and renewal. And one of the things that it was being advocated, and ICA is part of the JMIC as well, ICA has worked with what consortium we call the 3G, ICA, UFI, and AIPC. We have published what we call the good practice guidance addressing the COVID-19 requirements. So this is for the reopening business events, and we have a lot of examples. You can Google this PDF information, and there's a lot of good information provided by members of ICA, UFI, and AIPC about how they reopen and all those practical guidelines are being shared online. But having said that, if I can share with you, in Kuala Lumpur, we have reopened about 2.5 months already. We are early on the full lockdown. We are not even able to go out except to buy groceries and hospitals. But now we are a bit more freer. We can go to shopping. We can go back to work. Now I'm speaking to you from my office in Kuala Lumpur. Because of the local guideline, we even have to have our QR code checked for any of the guests coming to our office. So as you can see on screen, it's in Malay, but it's terima kasih, because it's thank you for your registration of the QR code or safety code coming to our office. I think this is part of the new normal that we have to go through. But having said that, I think what more important, if you out there are interested in developing or looking for guidelines, you can use the guidelines that we have published, but be mindful that you need to look at what are your local guidelines. Like in Malaysia, we have the Ministry of Health, and we have the Center for the COVID-19. They issued guidelines regularly, which is updated from day to day. So you need to follow those local guidelines when you are producing your own guidelines, because international guideline will not mean anything without the local regulation that already being put in place. Because I think this is really unprecedented. And when we talk about guidelines, we're also talking about reopening the borders. And I'm sure that most of you are looking at the numbers of affected people by COVID-19. There's a lot of tracking website out there. And one of the most interesting website, which I think a bit more positive, is the reopening of borders by countries that do best in their COVID-19. So countries that is in group what they call the green zone are now talking to each other about the reopening of the travel bubble. And countries in the yellow zone, for example, they are trying to be part of that green zone so that they can reopen the economy. Because I think all destinations, all countries in the world, the first thing they need to work is to work within their local community to have that green zone so that they can go back to work, open back their economy, jumpstart. And then when they have that, they need to start working with the rest of the countries globally. So I think this particular area is very important for us all. I never imagined in my lifetime, in our lifetime, we will be facing with this pandemic. We have seen movies, what happened in Europe hundreds of years ago. We all cite all kind of pandemic, but this COVID-19 is just incomprehensible. And I'm sure that some of you have looked at this world map of which country are affected by COVID-19. It's almost everybody except for maybe South Pole and North Pole. That's how bad situation are. So in final closing, the question is, can we really reinvent our industry? Economies are collapsing around the world. We see countries putting in billions of dollars to help the local community. And then we saw also virtual meeting are mushrooming. Are they going to stay? Are they going? Is a virtual meeting going to take over face-to-face meeting, which is something that we are comfortable of doing? I think we are really in an uncharted situation. We are in a trial and error. We have companies who are good doing organizing conferences, face-to-face, physical meetings. Now they are doing a trial and error of a virtual meeting. So this is something that everybody's trying to do. But I think in order for us all to stay survive, we must keep on innovating. We must fight, and I'm sure that we will be there. So I hope that short presentation make a bit of sense. Even though it sounded a bit negative, I hope that there is some positivity will come out of that. I'm sure that our industry will come out very strong. For example, from ICA Congress happening in November, we already have quite a lot of numbers of registration coming in. That shows the signal that the industry is coming together. They want to invest, because once this is over, we're all going to start working like never before. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. No, if anyone does have any questions, there's a Q&A box where you can feel free to ask away. We're going to move on to our panelists discussion. So first and foremost, I would like to introduce Marcel Yuels, who is the Director, Associations and Marketing of MCI Group here in Singapore. I'd also like to welcome Robert Rogers, a Certified Special Events Professional. He's a Director, Events Man, and founder of the Asian Events Organization. I'd like to welcome back Noor onto the panel, and our host, Eric Schmidt, CEO and co-founder of Event Bank. Eric, over to you.
Great, thank you, Kenny, and welcome to everybody who is joining us from different parts of Asia and wherever else anybody is around the world. Thank you, Noor, for your comments, and certainly some very interesting statistics that I think we can all obviously want to dig into a little bit over the next few minutes, and certainly think about in terms of how that impacts everything that everybody's trying to do over the next few months. Looking ahead, so Marcel, let's start with you just to give a quick introduction to what you are doing, how you are involved in events these days. Obviously, it's a little bit different than it was before. And then we'll also ask Robert to do the same thing.
Sure. Thank you for having me in the webinar, and good afternoon, or wherever you are. Thanks for joining today's session. My role is with MCI. I'm an association manager, so I run multiple associations as an outsource service provider, which means that we have the advantage of looking through various industries, very different organizations throughout, and apply as much knowledge as we can in the different directions. And we're currently in a phase where we're seeing that many of our clients are transitioning. Some were already transitioning, but we can also easier identify which kind of organizations are struggling versus others.
Great. Robert, welcome.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so I've been, I'm in the more on the creative side. I've run my own company, Events Man, and been working with lots of corporates, lots of privates, but I also had over 10 years working with ILEA, the International Live Events Association, helped to find it here. Certified Special Event Professional, one of 250 worldwide. Currently, I mean, with the virtual events, obviously with in my side with the private stuff, that all fell off a cliff, and so working more on the corporate side and trying to pivot that and help with the corporates to make their presentations, make their virtual stuff, and bring it up to more of an interesting level, so you don't get the Zoom burnout, as it were.
Great, thank you, Robert.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about, I know one of the things that continues to come up, again, obviously we can, we're sort of moving past, obviously, talking about how to set up a webinar at this point. I think anybody who doesn't know how to set up a webinar at this point probably has probably been sleeping for the last few months. So let's forget about that for a second, but Noor, and then I'll go to Marcel. If you could define what is a hybrid event and how do you see this playing out? I mean, obviously, China is sort of back to operations. Most people are just doing things in person. There are some virtual events that are still taking place. So it's a little bit different of a mix, but how do you see hybrid events impacting what, certainly the industry will look like moving forward?
Marcel first.
You can go first.
Okay, I think you are spot on talking about China in terms of reopening, because I think they are one of the first few countries that have reopened rather quickly. I had a chat with a couple of our members in China, in some of the big cities and the smaller cities. In Shanghai, for example, SNIEC, the Shanghai New International Expo Center, they have reopened about a month ago. And I think it also works because they have a very good system in terms of the health check that is through the green QR code, where they allow pre-registered delegates going to the exhibition, to the venues. That's already cleared from the COVID-19. When I was chatting with the general manager, Michael Krupe, a week ago, they had a local and international exhibition, and their daily number of guests is about 160,000 people. So, you know, we're talking about some countries reopening, allowing only up to 250. So China, they have gone to that level. But of course, what they are missing is that the international buyers or international exhibitors, which are not able to come into China, because if they come, they will be quarantined for 14 days, and a lot of destinations are still in the red zone area. So I think that's going to be the biggest challenge because of travel, but also in terms of the hybrid. This is where it comes into what I call the phase 2. Phase 1, Eric, you have mentioned very clearly, by now, if someone doesn't know how to set up a virtual meeting, there's something wrong with you. But you know, this is a second phase that people are learning to mix that face-to-face and hybrid. And I think a lot of destinations, including Malaysia, where I am, we have reopened about 2.5 months ago. And a lot of corporate companies are not able to run their event because of the budget constraint, but the government are kicking start a lot of events. So we can see even the local convention bureau are organizing events in terms of hybrid. They're having international audience and speakers, but they have local audience in place. So I think this is the way to go. This is the new normal that we have to go through. And I hope that when reopening is done by the respective government, then we will see more interaction between international destination and countries.
Right, I'm going to follow up straight from there, Noor. I think hybrid has some potential, but not in the way we're thinking of it, because we're working today from the perception that I organize an event and I put it online, that those who are online having a similar experience. While by now, if you've attended webinars, you've realized how hard it is to have a webinar experience and be able to transition that. So I think hybrid in itself does not have the right potential unless you're bringing in just speakers due to travel ban or other things. I think the opportunity is that to create content that will be available streaming. So I'd rather see a future whereby events are being held and recorded, and bits and bobs are being provided on a content base menu, where we can select what we want to listen to and when we want to listen to, rather than having to log in at certain times in order to catch that one in a virtual environment. I think as a person, we're not yet ready at that stage. We're still struggling with even the amount of time we're sitting in front of the screen today. And until we reach that level, even hybrid in whatever form it is, it's got potential, but we haven't discovered yet. At least I haven't heard of a format that I'd say, no, this is what I want to invest my time and resources in to make that work.
Marcel, if I may just add very quickly, I totally agree with you. Virtual and hybrid is just a short-term solution that we are all going through right now.
I want to just inject in there. It's something that we've been talking about in the green industry for quite a long time. Is, you know, why is it that you know, why don't we have more hybrids? Why don't we have more people online rather than flying all those miles? Also, I think it'd be very interesting. So, for instance, after 9/11, all of in the finance community, all the banks that used to have their head offices there and the World Trade Centers and stuff, they changed their security protocols quite drastically because, you know, groups like there's certain banks that just totally disappeared in one day. And I think we're going to start to see that more and more within the corporate world, is that, you know, you're not going to have these global meetings where everybody comes to Beijing, because, you know, people like UBS, they're not going to want to have all of their heads of all the different countries all in the one same room, not at least until there's some sort of vaccine. I think hybrid is the way to go, and some of the stuff that I'm starting to see is very interesting on the creative field, to bring in, you know, you guys were saying before about, you know, everybody knows how to do a web meeting, but a lot of the web meetings that I'm seeing, they're not very engaging, and part of that is because people think that, oh, it's just has to be online. And when you're bringing in a hybrid, you have to consider all of your different audiences from all different levels. So it's difficult to have just a coffee breakout at 11:15 when you're doing a webinar, but you can build that in. So you can have within your system, you can have breakout rooms, you can have conversation, you can have roundtable discussions, all within your platform. Obviously, you can't just do that on Zoom, but they do have Zoom rooms and stuff like that. I think hybrid is the way of the future, particularly with the sustainability aspect, which is coming into consciousness, and as well as from a security standpoint.
Yeah, one of the things you mentioned earlier, Marcel, talking about designing events. How are you thinking differently about designing events, breakout rooms, multiple sessions taking place? How are you thinking about that in this sort of virtual world and sort of going back to that hybrid concept? How do you think that works or doesn't work?
Yeah, if I may, I want to respond to Robert first, because he brings up an interesting point. There is a clear distinction between association events that have a learning element there to business conferences, either headquarters to that. So we see on a global level that the engagement from training your suppliers and representatives and all of that is moving virtually very strongly, and that's doing very well. It's the segment where NOR works in, particularly the association segment, where you have membership and online learning, which you normally do in person. That is completely destroyed. Anyway, trying to find a middle ground in this discussion here. Breaking them up. We try not to. We try not to have parallel sessions anymore, and we're trying to concentrate. We realize that people's attention span is reduced to the famous 8-second rule, and if I don't engage you within 8 seconds, I'm going to lose you. And this is part of what we need to learn to apply. But also, how long can you sit in front of a screen and have an attentive learning session? That's different when you're engaged with business discussion or other meetings. It's just a different perception. So we need to, we're actually having the same problems as schools in a way. How do you keep people informed, moving forward on their educational level, being able to measure that at the end of the day, and see what they take home from it. And I don't think the solution isn't there yet, but to break this out in subgroups is definitely something that we do, but not simultaneously online. It would be really something that is moderated independently, different timelines, allowing people access to choose.
What do you want to add, Tom?
I could jump in there. It's interesting. So one of the things that I'm watching, particularly for engagement and trying to and learning skills. So the Burning Man festival in the US, that was obviously canceled this year, but Burning Man has a major component of Silicon Valley people. Plus it's got, of course, the whole crazy creative aspect, being an art festival, and some of the stuff that they're planning and they're doing is very transferable coming into live events. And I'll be interested to see. It'll be in the next couple of weeks. So it'll be interesting to see what exactly they're going to do. I have the basic ideas, and I've seen a few of the plans for it. But yeah, when it actually comes down to it, how they manage the engagement and keep people's attention for, they're going to do a whole week. It's going to be a week-long session, So yeah, that'll be interesting.
Very interesting. Noor, did you want to add anything to your thoughts on that?
Thank you, Eric. I think Robert has touched, I think, is something that's very sensible in the sense that we are all going into the greening. And even in the association space, we talk about the travel effect, and so forth. We are very mindful to that. But also on the other side, the challenge is that we have destinations who are looking at the economic impact of arrivals of business travelers and so forth. and we have venues, we have hotels, which need the business. So, at this moment, I think this is the most hard-hit area in terms of business event. We've seen members of ICA, in particular venues, who have put their staff on furlough without salary for a long period of time. So, we are all talking about a survival of the industry. And I think from another angle that we all are quite concerned is that we are having a lot of webinars. We are having a lot of hybrid and virtual events. But yet in our industry, what we think we are missing is the involvement of the younger generation. I think this is a time that the younger generation can play a lot of things, because today we are seeing all these gentlemen, including myself, which is not below 25. So we need this kind of young blood to come to our industry, and maybe with their different mindset, organizing virtual event will be totally different. Because I have a son who is 25 years old, and he's doing his own group webinars involving friends from all over the world, and the conversation is different from what we are having now. So they might not have the same answer that we have for our industry, but it's a totally different perspective. So I think in our industry, that's what we are missing.
Yeah, and certainly across the association world, people have been obviously trying to, and events the same too, how to involve the sort of millennials into, obviously the planning and obviously bringing new ideas to it. And that generational gap of technology certainly is and has been changing the way things are done. And it is a challenge now, because you do have people who've been in the events industry for 30, 40 years, and now they have to go learn technology. And that's a challenge as well that, certainly people have seen over the last couple of months. So it's a transition, and, certainly people have different skill sets. How do you utilize them in the right way? Marcel, you were, I think, gonna say something there.
Well, I just wanted to add is that one of the industries to look at, I mean, one of the things that we're all familiar in doing is watching TV. And so one of the industries we're looking at very closely is the entire, media industry, and how they are transforming their education, their webinars, etc. Companies like Branded in Singapore, I look at them quite often and see how they're transforming. They're engaged in youth, they're engaged in music, they're engaged in brand development. So it's really interesting to see how that comes together. And one of the uses that we see more and more, and that was really appreciated, particularly in the business sector, is the use of studios, where we literally have a host sitting in a studio and everything gets pumped in, because we're familiar with that environment.
Interesting that you should say that. I've set up a small studio here in my office. I don't know if you can see, but I got a couple of different cameras going on. So we got that one from the back up here. So this is this one over here. There's one really interesting group. You mentioned Branded and what Branded is doing. They're doing some fun stuff. Do you know CT? They're Creative Technologies. They have offices in Singapore, Hong Kong, Shanghai, and their main office that they're affiliated with is in the UK. So their head office was doing lots and lots of TV production stuff. So one of the things that they've done is, I think they have one in Singapore, they also have one here, is they have a full green screen room. And you go into that room and they can build anything you can imagine. They can put you into outer space. They can build furniture. It's a green screen, so it's only your imagination and of course budget will limit you. But that sort of stuff really helps to keep the engagement. One of the other things, of course, is when you start looking at the, we're all learning how to work on this sort of virtual platform, because we're so used to being able to connect with people and see all of these little signs and take in all the information that's all around us. And you see a lot of people that aren't used to technology, unlike a lot of the millennials, and I saw a presenter the other day, and she was reading her notes on the screen, and every time she'd be like right up to her, she'd be right up to the screen seeing her forehead on the camera. Yeah, I mean, it's not like, one of the things that I work with a lot on, for instance, we're doing some stuff with with some schools. And with the schools, they teachers, they're like us, you know, they're older, they're not really very used to technology, and you know, they're trying to teach to kids that are very used to YouTubers and, you know, stuff that's quite quick and quite interesting. So I think a lot of it is really about working with the technology and learning how to use it, and trying to just create that engagement and trying to speak a slightly different language, or, you know, in some cases trying to learn a new language.
Absolutely. So, and I think, I can't remember who, you know, we talked about this in sort of the pre-session, but, you know, as we look to what are we transitioning to, what does this whole thing look like next? It must have been Marcel, because Marcel is laughing as I'm saying this. So I'll throw it over to him, and he can take that fun question and see what his fortune teller skills have to say.
Yeah, I wish I had that outlook. I don't. I think there are many things that are still playing. I mean, one of the things is every industry sector and every even within the association market, I have association clients that are currently booming. Tech sector, online education, you know, certification driven are doing well because people have extra time. They're updating their certifications. They're maximizing their time. Medical associations, other things. We're competing with everybody around the world on webinars, and we haven't found out a business model yet. So at the end of the day, it is how we're going to package what we're going to do, and then what business model we're going to attach to it. And that needs to be a complete rethink from scratch. All what we're trying to do is to learn as fast as we can. I mean, we're running within the company, I think about 400 webinars the last quarter. So we're learning a lot. We're making mistakes, but we're also making huge progress on how to develop new ways, and hopefully we can accumulate that in a format, and I'm sure that there are going to be winners and losers, but the biggest question is, again, to Noor's point, who is going to survive in the industry? There's going to be both from organizers, but associations are going to disappear or going to merge into other things, and that's going to be a natural process. So the question is, where are you putting your time and effort in? And that will create a new space for the others to grow and to perform. Noor, you want to sort of respond to that?
Well, just like you, I don't have any crystal ball as well. But you know, through my little experience, because we are organizing the ICA Congress in Kaohsiung this November, it will be a hybrid, and we have a lot of conversation with the government official. Interesting to note that for Chinese Taipei or Taiwan, they are one of the country in a green zone area, very much like New Zealand and others. New Zealand has gone without any infection for the last 90 days. Taiwan has gone without any infection almost 70 days. Thailand, for example, has gone without infection more than 60 days. So what I'm trying to say here is this is the big test for every individual in the world today, that we have to start to learn how to live together as a community. When the community work well, then you are safe from the COVID-19. And the next thing is for you to expand that the size of the community from a small apartment to the city that you live in, to the country that you live in, and to the region that you live in. Because if New Zealand can do well, but still they can't open their borders, because you know there are still many countries in the red zone, in particular from the West, you know, and also Latin America. So you know, when we talk about global business, we have to reopen the whole world, and this is going to be the biggest challenge. And coming back to what we are trying to do is that Taiwan says, no, we're going to open our doors to every delegate that who's willing to fly into Taiwan. Their only condition is that you have to take a COVID test 3 days before you depart. And if you're clear, you will get a 5 days quarantine instead of the long 14 days. Subject if you are coming from a green zone area. So, you know, then you have to check out whether you are living in a green zone country or yellow zone or red zone. So this is a challenge. I think what we are moving to the future is we have to move to that from red to yellow to the green. And once we are all in green zone, I think we'll be able to learn to live with this new normal. And the world has to learn to work together. I think this is the biggest challenge and the way to move to the future.
Absolutely, Noor. The interesting thing is we just got an invitation, I think over the weekend, to an event in Florida in a month. Obviously, I don't know that anybody that, at least our team is certainly not going to be attending that event, but Florida is definitely not one of the places that's doing very well right now. And attending an event in Florida in 30 days does not sound like a place that we want to be exposed to 300 other people in an open environment. So that's their plan. They plan on doing it in person. Obviously, we hope everybody stays healthy, but certainly there's a lot of risk that's going to be associated with that. And a follow up to you, Noor, because again, obviously, as an industry, what are people talking about from a risk assessment, and how is that being evaluated as people obviously, we've talked a little bit about China and China opening, going back to events, but as these places start to open, again, I know there's the industry standards, but that risk assessment, what does that look like? And are insurance companies getting involved, in this as well?
I think this is one of the big challenge for every community or every country to address, because we are dealing with something that's something's beyond our imagination. I can't repeat that enough. Having attended some of the physical events the last few months in Kuala Lumpur, I must say that one of the biggest challenges is that, well, you have the guidelines, you have the SOPs, you lay down all those, contact tracing, safety distancing, and so forth. That's all good. But the question is, who is going to do the policing? I've been to the event. We have all the social distancing as well and fine, but the minute the VIP come in, everybody wants to take photograph with them, and then people are just getting closer and closer and closer, and the hotels has a packed meal, which is good, but people are still sitting together, and this is all these opportunity to allow the spread of coronavirus, and I think we are not so careful with that yet. Just like when I was saying to you, in Shanghai, the event has 160,000 people. Of course, these are all people with a green health code coming to the event, but still there's no social distancing or safety distancing. So I think this is going to be the biggest challenge for any country. I'm sure that in Singapore, you have the SG Clean. You have a lot of initiative and guidelines, but how do we live with that? I think the key area will be the responsibility and discipline of every individual that is involved in this industry.
Yeah, Marcel, has MCI been talking about this at a corporate level, and any thoughts on how to deal with that?
No, we are sharing models on how to operate such, but it is extremely complicated, and the enforcement is really voluntarily and based on education of the individuals. But I think also we see, and you see this globally, is that people are just tired of it. People tend to go back to their quick habits, their normal habits very quickly in such an environment because they're used to it, and it's hard to remind them, and it's hard to restrict people. So then that brings up the following question: is that fine, you have an in-person event, you follow all the rules, what's the value? What's the value of your participation then if you can't mingle, if you can't have those social interactions, if you can't hug your friend when you see them, then why go? And this is really the phase where we're in, and I've called it, before we started this discussion, I call it the denial stage. We're still at the stage where we think that, well, we just wait and it will go away. And as it is clear, there'll be no events in the third quarter, fourth quarter of this year. 2021 is looking worse and worse as well. So you're looking at maybe the new normal starting in late 2021 or 2022. That's what we're talking about within MCI on a basically global level. National meetings, sure, there are going to be business events, there are going to be shareholder meetings, there are going to be those kind of smaller events. But for really the international travel applied, nobody will take the risk, because even if I have a green channel to Kaohsiung today, I don't know what's going to happen next week. And if I'm an organizer and investing in my event, a live event in today's date, I can't get a cancellation insurance. I can't get coverage for all the time and investment I do, and I tend to risk a lot. So it's not yet there. The business model isn't safe enough to do that unless you're corporate and you just want to risk it.
Yeah, that's a good point for sure. Okay, we're coming towards the end of the allocated time here. I guess, Robert, we'll throw this over to you first. As you look at strategies moving forward, and as people are sort of planning out the next 6, 9, 12 months, what are some things that you think people should be thinking about as they're thinking about that strategy? And of course, let's throw monetization in there, because that is a key element to keeping businesses in business, and obviously people employed as well. So
they've stopped panicking so much, and now they're, like you say, they're starting to look forward to how we're gonna be going on. Some of the stuff that we're talking about within my groups. Obviously, the next step is going to be smaller groups getting together. So seeing leadership conferences. So you get, small group of like 10, 20 people. And from them, then you're also, of course, seeing all the online stuff. And then from there, they'll start to slowly build and get bigger and bigger and bigger. And depending on where you are, and you have the travel bubbles that will start to emerge. Hong Kong and Thailand was very excited because we were going to have a travel bubble. That was until Hong Kong suddenly went backwards. But one of the, as far as monetization, I mean, that's the tricky part, is because currently everybody's out there and everybody's trying to learn how to use this medium for virtual stuff, for online stuff, and trying to get people to pay for it. There's a lot of people that are just very used to getting it for free. We live in that Facebook world where, why should I have to pay for it? And on top of that, there's some really, really interesting stuff that's out there that people have suddenly had to pivot from, that they had planned, that, suddenly, like I said, before the nudge stock one, which was really interesting. You had some of the top professors and thinkers on motivation of people, all suddenly available, and that was a very exclusive conference, and suddenly that was available online. So when you're trying to monetize your virtual event, you need to look at other revenue streams. So sponsorship is obviously a key one. Whether that's in kind, whether they're helping you with the platforms. Getting money out of people, I think, is going to be hard in the short term. But as like with any event, trying to get attendees to come, the first year they're not going to get loads in. But as they start to realize that this is a quality event, that the content is worthwhile and worth paying for, that's where you can then start to charge, and people will pay for good content. Content is always king, and no matter what platform that is. So yeah, that would be my only takeaway, would be just make sure that whatever you're doing is engaging, is interesting, has value. And if it has value, people will see that and they will pay for it.
Or so?
Two key comments on this. First of all, the free membership and the free services has been a discussion for more than a decade in the industry, particularly in the association industry. And I think if you weren't planning towards that yet, now is a good time to fast track that one in both the membership and everything else. And I see a lot of our clients doing that. But there are a few other things that are that we've seen is very important. Digital sphere is as it is. It's digital. So as you have global associations, we've just realized within one of our clients that we are duplicating basically the same topics, same speakers in 3 different time zones, because that's how we used to do it. And now we're saying, wait a minute, we're going to ask one speaker, we're going to record it, And then we're going to duplicate these in the various time zones, and we create only the local element to a new program, which means that we can drastically reduce our production costs. We can drastically reduce our manpowers in terms of coordinating the meetings, etc., and hopefully have a better product. The second part that we're discussing a lot is to do with the fact that, as I said, the Facebook generation. When you watch YouTube, you get an advertisement every 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Why can't we do that? Just because, you know, people object about it as a member, but then again, you watch YouTube and you see a documentary and you get it every 5 minutes and you're fine with it. So let's use that concept. We give us the power to generate money through different ways, and then we can give you the free content. It's a give and take. So, and I think that model is definitely going to be used by some of our clients.
Noor, final thoughts?
Thank you, Eric. My final thoughts, I think, very aptly with the topic that we have today. There's reinventing the event industry under the new normal. I think the key word here is reinventing. As an industry, we must not stop doing that. We need to reinvent because, you know, it's all true by trial and error. You know, when you reinvent something, you never know that, you know, the plane will fly. You know, I'm sure that, you know, the brothers that did the first plane flight, you know, it has to gone through a lot of testing, a lot of trial and error, and I think we just need to do that. We are in this situation that we are not in control. We're just hoping that one day some brilliant scientists come up with a vaccine and it's available to the whole world, the whole population in the world. At the meantime, for our industry, I believe that we have to keep on doing just that, reinventing. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And appreciate everybody's time today. I would, you know, emphasize to all of our attendees this afternoon, if you do have other suggestions of speakers, obviously you can see we did not do a very good job of being very gender diverse today, but certainly we would look forward to any female speakers who would be interested in speaking at future events, and be happy to involve them in those events. We do these on a regular basis, usually monthly. So obviously we would love to have more participation from women on these panels. But nonetheless, Marcel, Robert, and Noor, thank you guys very much for your comments. We wish everybody safety and as well as your health. And we look forward to hopefully seeing everybody in person very soon somewhere in Asia. Have a great afternoon, guys.